Now, it's time for some sanity. It's the Michele Tafoya podcast.
Welcome to a brand new episode of the Michele Tafoya podcast. Notice the pep in my step. It is the day after the election 2024. And before I go any further, please hit that subscribe button. We'd love to have you on board every time so that you never miss. We have some great interviews on this show from people you've heard of and some you've never heard of. Today, you're going to hear a smattering of all kinds of Americans. It's going to be great. This might be the best episode we ever do. So please subscribe, tell your friends, yada, yada, yada. We had an election. Did you notice? And no matter what time of day you're watching this, it is morning in America. I hasten to add, I'm not necessarily drawing a parallel between Reagan and Trump, but it just feels good today. I know it doesn't for a lot of you, but I think you're going to be okay. One person was not around to share this. I lost a friend this week. She was looking forward to voting for Donald Trump. She died very young at the age of 61 from cancer. I miss her. But I hope somewhere she's shaking her head. Yes, it turned out the way it was supposed to. Another person who was not around to vote was paid a little tribute yesterday by an online guy named Jack Prosobiec. I hope I'm saying it right. Let's just take a listen, because I think this probably affected people in a lot of ways before they went to vote, and hopefully inspired even a handful. Here's Jack Prosobiec on someone who wasn't able to vote yesterday.
That there's one Pennsylvanian that will not be able to vote today. He wanted to very much, but that right and that opportunity was taken from him. And his name is Corey Compatore. Every single issue that you face in line today, every single minute you have to wait, just remember something, that there's a man, a Pennsylvanian, one of the greatest Pennsylvanians ever to walk the anointed soil of our Commonwealth, named Corey Compatore. Do it for Corey.
I thought that was kind of beautiful. If you recall, Corey Compatore died in Butler, Pennsylvania at the rally where the assassination attempt was made on Donald Trump. And he was the one serious casualty, the one we lost. Volunteer firefighter, great guy, father, husband. I thought that was a beautiful thing. And that's as down as I'm going to be today. And I just thought it was a beautiful tribute and a good way to start. I hope his family has some peace today. And that's not to suggest that we wouldn't have had peace if Kamala Harris had won. But anyway, it just, I thought that was beautiful. Here's something that wasn't beautiful, okay? So Elon Musk, his endorsement of Donald Trump and joining this campaign, and frankly, his purchase of Twitter and changing it to X and making it a place where free speech can really explode. I think it changed America, maybe changed the world. Elon Musk has changed the world in so many ways, and I have a feeling he's just going to keep going. But Rachel Maddow on MSNBC, she was predicting that if Kamala Harris won this election, bad things were going to happen to Elon Musk. Let's listen to a little bit of Rachel Maddow saying that the government, after Kamala Harris was supposed to win, was going to disengage from Elon Musk. Again, this is before the election. Go ahead and roll this, John.
Even if Trump doesn't win, the Defense Department and NASA are going to need a new arrangement for all their rockets and for all the multi-billion-dollar contracts Elon Musk's companies have with the U.S. government. The U.S. government is going to have to either, unwind from all of those contracts, or Elon Musk's companies are going to have to unwind from him. This is an untenable reality in national security terms, now that we know what we know about Elon Musk.
What is it exactly that we know about Elon Musk that we didn't know before? That he supports Donald Trump for president because he likes free speech and hates censorship? That's what we know about Elon Musk, Rachel? I tried to, my husband and I were watching the results last night. We were trying to watch Rachel Maddow and company for a little while. And frankly, it was just dull. CNN was dull. We tried. We wanted to see what the other side was saying. And how sad is it, by the way, that we're referring to networks as the other side? But that's where we are. At least that's where we were. And that is where a massive sea change may be occurring after the election of Donald Trump. Because again, the mainstream media and those who told us he was not going to win, i.e. those who called you a fascist, a Nazi, a racist, a white Christian nationalist, a homophobe, a xenophobe, a misogynist, all the names they called you, remember that? And they told you that Kamala was going to win. They're now coming up with excuses of why she didn't win. Oh, it was Tim Walz. What a terrible choice. Oh, it was, she should have come in sooner. Biden should have quit sooner. Well, you were the ones telling us that Biden was running circles around everyone at the White House. What it was a choice between authentic and inauthentic. Someone who really wanted the job versus somebody who was trying to be coronated and just speaking on behalf of a machine that right now is the Democrat Party. Now, they're going to play the long game, and for the next 4 years, you watch. It's going to be fascinating. At least the Senate went Republican. I think at this moment that I'm recording, we're still waiting on the House to see what the balance of power will be. But here's one thing I did see on CNN. They have a guy there, Scott Jennings, who actually is excellent in the way that he argues. And I got to give CNN credit for hiring this guy. And after the election was won by Donald Trump last night, here on CNN, Scott Jennings faced the rest of the panel, a very pro-Harris panel, a very Democrat, liberal, progressive panel. And he said this.
I'm interpreting the results tonight as the revenge of just the regular old working class American, the anonymous American who has been crushed, insulted, condescended to. They're not garbage. They're not Nazis. They're just regular people who get up and go to work every day and are trying to make a better life for their kids, and they feel like they have been told to just shut up when they have complained about the things that are hurting them in their own lives. I also feel like this election, as we sit here and pour over this tonight, is something of an indictment of the political information complex.
Okay, stop it there, John, for a second. He's making 2 points. First, this election was basically the revenge of the normies, right? The normal people that I have felt for years have been ignored. Like, I kept asking, where is the middle gone? Well, the middle spoke last night in this election. And that's what he's saying. These people that you've called them names. I detailed all the names. Nazis was among the most reprehensible. Fascists, racists, white supremacists. The people in the media called Trump supporters those things. And Van Jones later on CNN tried to say, well, it was other Republicans who called Donald Trump the fascist. Well, so they say. I don't know that story has ever been corroborated, but regardless, so that's one thing that Scott Jennings said is this was people saying enough of calling us names. We're just trying to get ahead in the world. And all you elitists keep looking down on us for going to work every day, doing our jobs, trying to make ends meet. And by the way, not wanting crime, not wanting illegal immigrants to take over the country, which is what it's been feeling like for a lot of people, wanting to be able to afford gas for their trucks or their cars or their motorcycles, and just not wanting to be looked down on by all of you elitists. And boy, we're going to get to some stuff later in this podcast about the elitists that it's going to make your skin crawl, I hope, because you need to know this is out there. And I think we're collectively starting to discover this is out there. There is a class of people in this country who definitely feel like they're smarter than you, better than you, and that they know what's best for you, and that you don't know what's best for yourself. That's what they think, guys. That's what they think. They think they've been to Ivy League schools, so they're smarter. This is why, J.D. Vance is such an exception. Went to an Ivy League school, but he started dirt poor. and worked his way, grinded his way through. Spent time in the military. This guy gets it. We're going to hear from him a little later too, in a few minutes. So, but then Scott Jennings goes on about this information complex. Let's let him finish.
Something of an indictment of the political information complex. I mean, we've been sitting around here for the last couple of weeks, and the story that was portrayed was not true. I mean, we were told Puerto Rico was going to change the election. Liz Cheney, Nikki Haley voters, women lying to their husbands. Before that, it was Tim Walz and the camo hats. Night after night after night, we were told all these things and gimmicks were going to somehow push Harris over the line, and we were just ignoring the fundamentals. Inflation, people feeling like that they were barely able to tread water at best. That was the fundamentals of the election.
That was the fundamentals of the election. The thing that I appreciate about Scott Jennings as well is how even-keeled he is when he's delivering that message. And I think he is spot on. And I think a lot of people warned about it and said it in advance. A lot of people that I've gotten to know at Fox News Channel, where I'm fortunate enough to get a platform a couple times a year or month. So thank you, Scott Jennings. Now, after it was all over, and I'm jumping around here because I think this is the most fun way to do this. It's like a smattering of everything we've heard in the last 24 hours. So Dana White is big on the Trump bandwagon. I think he brought a lot of men along to the vote. And he's been on this bandwagon for a long time. Quick anecdote about Dana White and me. When I left NBC and left the NFL to come speak out about the things I wanted to speak out against critical race theory, against all the divisions that have been going on, against gender theory, all these things being taught in our schools, not against it, but against it being taught in K through 12. Dana White called me. I don't know how he got my number. Well, anyway, he called me and he was so supportive and wanted to help me in any possible way that he could. And I so appreciated that. So this guy's been a conservative for a long time. And here's what he said on stage at the victory party last night.
Nobody deserves this more than him, and nobody deserves this more than his family does. This is what happens when the machine comes after you. What you've seen over the last several years, this is what it looks like. Couldn't stop him. He keeps going forward. He doesn't quit. He's the most resilient, hardworking man I've ever met in my life. His family are incredible people. This is karma, ladies and gentlemen. He deserves this. They deserve it as a family.
I think it's really interesting. People love to hate Donald Trump's family because they're wealthy and they're great looking and they're polite and they were raised really well. And that's not super common anywhere in the world. But think about what they've been through. The assassination attempts, the lawfare, all of that. And there's one thing you have to say about President-elect Donald Trump. The guy's got a tenacity and a ferociousness and a spine like no other I've ever seen in politics. And his family never, ever, ever wavered. Ever. Not one of them wavered. I've had experiences in my family where one of my family members has been attacked, and it's made me so protective of that person that I almost want to shelter and hide them. They didn't do that. And I hope to be inspired by that. No matter what you throw at them, they can take it. We could all learn from this. That's called resilience. That's called fortitude. That's called knowing who you are. I don't care if you don't like any of them. You have to admire those qualities of being bold, unafraid, and being willing to stand for what you believe, stand for your values. And they all did. Like, it cracks me up. I saw a picture of Barron Trump going to vote, his first vote, like my son's first vote. Only my son didn't dress in a suit to go vote, and Barron did. It's like that family's been, brought up to just present themselves at their best all the time. Look at me, I'm just wearing a sweater today. And they're probably dressed to the nines. So that is Dana White. What a supporter. I said that this was an election between authenticity and inauthentic. Would you say inauthenticity? The authentic candidate and the inauthentic candidate. Now, we saw a lot of examples of how inauthentic Kamala Harris is. By the way, here we are. It's 11:18 a.m. Eastern time. The race is over. We have yet to hear from her. She has not called the president that I am aware of at this moment, and she did not speak to her supporters at the party last night, the watch party. She sent out a surrogate to talk to them, and she's not supposed to speak till 6 o'clock tonight. What is going on there? What is going on? I think there are three choices. A, she's a sore loser. B, they're looking at litigation. Or C, maybe she's hungover. I don't know. But here, they had her go to a phone bank of hers yesterday on election day and reach out to a voter, we think. Steve Hilton, who's a Brit, who's now an American citizen, who lives in California, posted this video. And I think it illustrates beautifully how inauthentic she is. Go ahead and roll it, John.
How you doing? Have you voted already? Give me a second. You did? Thank you. Thank you so very much. You know, it's so important that everybody participates.
I wonder at that point in the day if she really believed she was going to win. It's amazing how if you enclose yourself enough and encircle yourself with supporters only, you can be led to believe that you are going to win. I'm just not sure they had any other inkling. Let me just stop for a minute and say this. It is still football season. It is still time to grill. And it is also holiday season coming up. And I have the best gift recommendation maybe I've ever given. My friends at besthotgrill.com, besthotgrill.com, make the best hot grill. It's called a Solaire grill. And this little thing, there's one that's like a mini. You can take it on a boat. You can take it on to a picnic, to a tailgate. You can take it anywhere. I was going to get into a Dr. Seuss rhyme, but I won't. But this thing is awesome. It heats up so fast to searing hot temperatures that, let's say you're at a tailgate on a Saturday or Sunday. You fire this thing up. It's hot like that. You grill and then you turn it off and it cools just as quickly so that you're not like waiting around. Oh, everyone's going to the game and I'm sitting here. This thing is a phenomenal product made in America. I cannot recommend it enough. Made by Solaire. It'll make you the master of the tailgate, and it will also make you the master of gift giving. And there's a try before you buy. So if you want to go to besthotgrill.com and check out the try before you buy, you can give it a try. See if you want one for yourself. Wrap it up, put it under the tree for yourself. This thing is great. Solaire infrared grills, and this one can go anywhere with you. It's really light, too. I was amazed. Like I said, made in the USA, everywhere and all about infrared grills. They're portable, perfect for grilling on the go. Find out about the try before you buy at besthotgrill.com. Besthotgrill.com, made in the USA, besthotgrill.com. All right. One of the big arguments where people said the reason that Kamala was going to vote was abortion rights, reproductive rights. And I'm pro-choice. I've said that a million times. What I couldn't understand was why women could prioritize that over safety. Like, what good are your reproductive rights if you're dead? What good are reproductive rights if you're Jocelyn and Gary and you've been murdered at the age of 12? What good are those reproductive rights? How could that be your number one thing? Having an abortion. And all of these dads who said, I want this for my daughters. You want your daughters to have abortion rights? I mean, okay. Like I said, I'm pro-choice. I get it. But how about just raising your daughters to understand that there are many, many, many ways to avoid getting pregnant? Again, I'm not belittling rape and incest and those things that happen. And by the way, I had what are called DNCs, which are supposedly abortions. Some people label them as abortions. They're not. When I've had miscarriages. So look, there's a lot that goes into reproductive health. They tried to convince you that Donald Trump was going to ban abortion. And here's a male voter being interviewed about his priorities in this election, and watch how emotional this man gets about his daughters. Let's roll it.
Who'd you vote for today?
I voted for Kamala Harris.
Why is that?
I have 3 daughters, 4 children overall, and women's rights is pretty important to them and my daughters. Sorry, I'm getting a little emotional about that. I didn't think that I was going to do that, but just their bodies, their choice type of a mentality. I want them to grow up in a world that's welcoming to everybody. That's why I cast my vote today.
Okay. I can't think of a world that's more welcoming than the one that welcomed what the progressives like to call black and brown people, African Americans, Hispanics. Donald Trump cut into those margins incredibly. It's astonishing. Like, you can say Kamala Harris won New York and New Jersey, but her margins were a whole lot slimmer than Joe Biden's were 4 years ago. But back to this voter. He's getting emotional about his daughters being able to have access to their... when he talks about his daughters' rights, what about their rights to play sports and not have to compete against men? What about their rights to walk into a bathroom and not have to worry about a male being in the bathroom? I hear my hope, and I believe fervently over the next 4 years, we're going to see that those rights get protected, as do their reproductive rights. It's in the state's hands now. So there we go. Florida had a couple issues on the ballot yesterday that were about abortion. One of them would have allowed abortion up through the 9th month of pregnancy. That was struck down. In fact, I think both the abortion measures on the ballot in Florida, which has become a very reliably red state, even Miami-Dade County, which has got a high density of black and brown voters. I'm using the progressive words of African Americans and Hispanics, Latinos. That county went for Trump. So after Florida made it clear they didn't want abortions up through the 9th month of pregnancy, Joy Reid of MSNBC said this.
It's a pure Project 2025 in miniature in Florida. And that kind of extreme, sort of extremist, right-wing, fascist type government in Florida, does that make it a more attractive place?
She called it Project 2025 in miniature. Yeah, let's see about that. Let's just see about that. I mean, this is the kind of talk from the networks that they've been trying to convince you of these things that are not true. And you on a gut level knew they were not true, which is why so many of you voted the way that you did. Now, prior to the election, I'm going to stick with Joy Reid for a minute, because here she is again, trying to convince you of something that you kind of know isn't true. I mean, you really know on a gut level, these things that she's saying aren't true, but she has an audience. I don't know how big her audience is, Joy Reid. It's enough to keep her on the air there. But here she is again. She started this speech by saying, okay, we've done all we could from this side of your television screen to convince you of this.
And we begin our final sprint, having arrived at that point in the election season where basically we on this side of the TV screen have said all we can. We've laid out the stakes in this crucial election, where one side stands for freedom while the other meets the textbook definition of fascism, namely a far-right dictatorial regime like Hitler's Germany or Franco's Spain or Mussolini's Italy, but also white-ruled South Africa before Mandela and the black majority took control, or Vladimir Putin's Russia, Viktor Orban's Hungary, or Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela today. That suppresses the rights of women and minorities, uses the military to execute the whims of a strongman dictator, and controls and suppresses the press.
Let's just see how much of that comes to fruition, shall we? See, the difference that she's ignoring is we have a constitutional republic. And there are other branches of government that prevent or support the whims of the executive branch. She's trying to compare Trump to Mussolini and Hitler and Nicolas Maduro, as she put on her best Spanish accent. Maduro. I said Maduro. Maduro. I was being feminine. The future is feminine after all. Yeah, I mean, I think what makes me really happy today is that you didn't all fall for it. Is that there were enough of you that went, shut up, Joy. What you're telling me is not true. You are hyperbolic and you're a little off your rocker. So, enough. I think that's probably why I'm in the mood that I am. I'm going to show you a couple tweets here that don't have video, but they are so worth looking at. Barry Weiss, one of my favorites at the Free Press. Remember, she was at the New York Times. She quit because she saw that the New York Times was no longer a place of balanced journalism. And so she went off and created the Free Press, which has become very successful. If you don't have a subscription, why not? Check it out. But here's what she posted. Winners: Elon Musk, Joe Rogan, Josh Shapiro, X, prediction markets, Peanut, RIP, that's the squirrel who was killed. Losers: Randy Weingarten, Ayatollahs, cable news, pollsters, Obama. As I'm, apparently she put that up there at 1:30 in the morning Eastern time, or no, Central time yesterday, this morning. It's got almost 500,000 views. She is so absolutely right. Yeah, the peanut factor, this squirrel who the New York government just went in, took and killed, euthanized this pet squirrel. If you haven't, you got to Google it. You got to read into it. There are some amazing things written about Peanut and what it really symbolized. Not just a squirrel who was euthanized, but somebody's pet who was taken from them by the government. And that's not authoritarian, Joy Reid? I don't know. I just don't know. I do know this. People are tired of inflation and paying so much for everything. And if you're feeling overwhelmed by the cost of healthcare insurance, you're not alone. Have you had enough of not having control over your healthcare dollars? Okay, introducing ShareRight. This is healthcare done the right way. At ShareRight, you're not just a number, you're part of a caring community. And forget about paying excessive premiums. With ShareRight, you stand to save 30 to 50% compared to health insurance. Think about what you could do with all those savings. You probably spend it on things that you need. But it's more than just savings. ShareRight ensures that you have access to the care you deserve and precisely when you need it. From routine checkups to unexpected emergencies, with ShareRight, your healthcare is their top priority. So empower yourself today by taking control of your healthcare costs. Visit shareright.org/Tafoya, Tafoya, to learn more and see how much you can save. Visit ShareRight. So it's all one word, ShareRight.org/Tafoya. That's shareright.org/Tafoya for healthcare done the right way. So loved that Barry Weiss tweet. Here's another one. And this one is from Vivek Ramaswamy, who this is going to be interesting because I think Vivek would be so powerful in a Trump cabinet. But I'm hearing this guy wants to run for governor in Ohio. So that's his home state. We'll see. But here's what he tweeted, and this I love this. Exit polls show that, quote unquote, threats to democracy was a top issue. Mainstream media thought that meant votes for Kamala. But turns out it was exactly the opposite. Voters are rejecting censorship, lawfare, and dishonesty. You know, that whole threat to democracy argument that the left kept making, like, our democracy is going to be in a shambles if Trump wins. No, people were sick of being censored. They were sick of Google not answering their searches correctly or accurately or in a way that was politically even and balanced. They're sick of being told what they were based on who they wanted to vote for, being told all those things that we mentioned, a fascist, a racist, whatever. They were sick of it. And here, John, I'm gonna skip the JD Vance sound for a second. We're gonna get back to it, but I want to go to this other tweet that I saw this morning when I woke up, and boy, did I tweet back at this woman. First of all, it's an X post, Michelle. Her name, she goes by Susanna Smith, PhD. So right away, she wants you to know how well educated she is. Okay, Susanna Smith. Here is her post, and I quote, "There is a reason why educated people vote blue." Let me repeat that. There is a reason why educated people vote blue. What we're seeing is the uneducated population of America holding the rest of the country hostage. This is why there's such a push to weaken education, ban books, and outlaw the teaching of Black history by the Republican Party. Projection much? The uneducated masses, you dirty and feeble-minded people, you're holding we educated Americans hostage. Who's been trying to control education, Susanna? That'd be Randy Weingarten and company. That'd be forcing gender theory and queer theory and, critical race theory into schools. Banning books, enough of the word banning in this case. If you can find the book in a bookstore, which you can find it on Amazon, you can find it anywhere, then the book is not banned. If I move it from one shelf to another shelf because I don't want my kids to get their hands on it, that's not banning the book. That's determining what I think is appropriate for my 8-year-old or my 6-year-old. Outlaw the teaching of Black history, she says. I'm sorry, what? Susanna Smith, PhD. I consider myself very well educated. I earned a degree with honors from UC Berkeley, and then I went into graduate school and got a master's in business, the most grueling 2 years of my life at USC, Southern Cal. But it's my wisdom that I rely on every day to make my decisions about people I hang out with and about people for whom I vote. This is the kind of elitism that y'all have rejected. And bravo to you for doing it. That post on X, Susanna Smith, she's hearing it. Don't worry. She's hearing it. Oh my gosh. In fact, I'll just give you one example of a comment. I have a PhD from Columbia and an AB from Harvard, plus 2 other Ivy League degrees, and I would be mortified to vote for an ignoramus like Harris. Being quote unquote educated means you copied down the bullshit they taught you and never questioned a damn thing. So she's hearing it. Oh, she wrote back. Oh gosh. This is where sometimes you just have to walk away. You just have to turn your back and say, I'm walking away. Oh my gosh. Well, and then let's go to this next graphic from Georgetown, and then we'll go back to as we get ready to wrap up here. But so Georgetown has you covered. If you're sad today, Georgetown's going to coddle you. Don't worry. Georgetown University's McCourt School announced that they will be hosting a post-election day self-care suite. A self-care suite for students to deal with stressful times, which includes playtime with Legos, milk and cookies, and coloring. Yes, it's real. Look at this. From 10 to 11, tea, cocoa, and self-care. From 11 to 12, Lego Station. From 12 to 1, Healthy Treats and Healthy Habits. From 1 to 2, Coloring and Mindfulness Exercises. From 2 to 3, Milk and Cookies. From 4 to 5, we get Legos and coloring again. And from 5 to 6, snacks and self-guided meditation. It's real. It's real. See, this is the problem with education. They're not teaching you how to have a spine. They're not teaching you how to argue on behalf of your values, no matter what they are. They're not teaching you to be resilient enough to deal with quote unquote adversity and real adversity. They're not teaching you philosophy. They're teaching you that if you don't get what you want, it's going to be okay because there will be milk and cookies. It's going to be okay. Come have some self-care and some hot cocoa and play with some Legos, and it'll all be okay. And then we'll go rampage the next day and wear pink hats in DC and burn cars and become part of the resistance. Because you can't deal with adversity. Oh my, how pathetic is that? How pathetic is it that universities like Georgetown are instilling in these people that when things don't go their way and that when they're scared or stressed, that the only way to take care of themselves is with milk and cookies. That they can't stand up, walk through it, face the music and say, okay, here's the cards that I've been dealt. Now what do I do? Read some Stoicism, people. That's what I would recommend. Get The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. Read Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. Get a spine. Understand, if you think things went terribly wrong, why don't you look real closely through a microscope, figure out what went wrong and why, and if you feel like you need to fix it, find a way to fix it. But hot cocoa and tea ain't going to fix it. It might make you feel better for now, but it ain't going to change the situation tomorrow. And if you truly want to change the situation, maybe you got to look at yourself and maybe you got to look at reality and understand that, guess what? America wasn't buying what you were selling. America was not buying what you were selling. Do a self-scout, for God's sakes. I just find that so pathetic. And my son texted me a couple days ago. He said, do you think if Trump wins, we're going to have a day off on Wednesday here at school? He's in college in his first year. And I said, if you do, that is a pathetic statement about your school. People, honestly, you could really do yourself some good by reading some Stoicism. Get Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. There's a reason it's a classic. There's a reason a lot of really successful people read it. Read some Seneca. All right, I think J.D. Vance, someone that people call he's going to be the least popular vice president in American history. No, we already had that. That was Kamala Harris. You ran her for president. That might have been part of the problem. I think J.D. is going to do just fine. But let's play this sound from J.D. Vance, because what he was asked is, when it's all over, if you lose or if you win, what should happen in America? And here is your Vice President-elect, J.D. Vance, with this stunningly great answer.
I'd say to everybody, whether you're voting for Donald Trump or voting for Kamala Harris, remember, friends and family, that stuff is what really, really matters. We ought to be kind to one another. We ought to treat each other with respect. And fundamentally, what we're trying to do, President Trump and I, is just build the kind of country where our fellow Americans can achieve their dreams. But that's all of our fellow Americans, regardless of who they vote for.
Okay? Is that going to be okay with everyone? Think you can handle that? I had a good friend shoot me a text this morning telling me that her very liberal sister wrote her, okay, I know you're all happy over there, but could you just please show some compassion for those of us who are scared and sad? Sure, we can do that. Would you have done the same for us if Kamala had won? We probably wouldn't have needed it because we would have found a way to soldier through, soldier on. I leave you with this, and I'm going to say be brave and do good in advance of this because I want this to be the punctuation mark on our podcast today. Do you remember during the election, there was a gal that asked Alexa, why should I vote for Donald Trump? And Alexa said, I'm sorry, I can't tell you anything about politics, something to that effect. And then she said, Alexa, why should I vote for Kamala Harris? One of the compelling things about Kamala Harris as a candidate is she is the first woman of color. But went on and on and on. Remember that? Alexa, Amazon got in a little bit of trouble. By the way, Jeff Bezos this morning congratulated President-elect Trump. That's a little interesting turn. Anyway, that was Alexa then. Again, folks, be brave, do good out there, and enjoy this final little meme that made me laugh out loud on X this morning.
The President of the United States.
The U.S. President is Donald Trump.
The controversy began when New York wildlife officials from the Department of Environmental Conservation seized Peanut from his owner, Mark Longo, after receiving reports of unsafe housing for wildlife. The 7-year-old squirrel had amassed a following of over 500,000 Instagram fans, with videos of his playful antics gaining widespread popularity. However, Peanut bit a DEC official during the seizure, and authorities ultimately euthanized him, citing the need to test for rabies. Along with Peanut, a raccoon named Fred was also found on the same property, and he too was put down.